We're joined now by the national sports editor of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports Vertical, the one and only Rob, the hockey guy, Rob Williams.
Thank God there's only one.
I'd like more.
Really?
Honestly, clone this guy. World would be a better place.
One's good. One is really good, but it's totally good.
You're unique, Rob.
Well, you guys have had the YouTube hockey guy on, so
that's true.
Yeah, we have.
Is there a rivalry there? Octagon?
No. We have separate realms, but then
it's true.
He's YouTube. I'm Twitter.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So our first chance to talk to you since the end of this Canucks season, Rob, and I guess I'm just looking for your big picture thoughts of how it went down in the loss to the Oilers, and then I'm quite interested about your thoughts on the Elias Pettersson matter going forward or after that.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be said that it was a successful season, right? Like, given what we expected going into the season, obviously expectations were quite low. Just squeaking into the playoffs was the goal. They did so much better than that, winning the division, winning around. I think even with reset expectations, though, going into the playoffs, I think it was a success. Of course, there's only one team's going to be truly happy at the end of the season out of 32 teams. But to beat Nashville, to get to the second round, to play the Oilers, a bona fide Stanley Cup contender. I was saying before that series, if they at least push the 6 games, I think you can hold your head high at the end of the year and say that's a success. They did better than that. I mean, they gave the Oilers a genuine scare, pushed them to 7 games. It was looking like they were going to go out in a whimper in Game 7, and that would have left a sour taste in people's mouths. I think if they had lost 3-0, getting shut out again in Game 7. But then they even performed the mini comeback, and when they made it 3-2, I thought surely not again like this. And then you start to believe, and they were one shot away. JT Miller had that great chance in the last 10 seconds, could have tied the game. I think you want to see them progress from here. I don't think you want to see this. You don't want to look back in 5 years and be like the high point of the Hughes, Miller, Pettersson era was going to Game 7 in the second round. But I think all things considered, successful season, successful cup run, and gave the fans a pretty good thrill this spring.
So with that in mind, do you think they should still try to revamp the lineup, or do you want to see most of these faces back?
I think they're going to have to revamp it, right? Like they're not. I think just given the amount of free agents that they have, you've got to be careful when paying them. And I know I see a lot of the chatter out there. I feel like there's a lot of recency bias right now. Like people on, Canucks fans on social media, just, Canucks fans that I talk to, not on social media, like everyone loves Zadorov. Everyone's down on Hronek. Everyone loves Joshua. Everyone's down on Ian Cole. So that I say not so fast. Like you've got to take the totality of the season into account. You can't just be enamored with, admittedly an excellent run by Zadorov. And I think that he brings a different element to the table, like the swagger, the physical element, but you can't just start paying guys because of a good 4-week run, big body or not, swagger or not. You've got to be very careful with that. Like Zadorov for me is a guy that it just screams of a guy that's going to get completely overpaid in free agency. And I think you need to be very, very careful with that. I think you put a premium on the X factor. I think that's worth something. I don't think you just say, oh, whatever, his size doesn't matter. It absolutely does. But, if you start getting into giving big money and term to a guy that's never, let's be honest, he's never proven to be a top 4 defenseman for an extended period of time in the NHL. You've got to be careful with someone like that, as they're about to turn age 30.
Do you have a number in mind? Do you have a ceiling for Zadorov and for Hronek for that matter? Do you have a number where you're like, nope, not going past that?
I don't know if I have a precise number. I think to me, Zadorov's in the 4 million range. I think that probably makes some sense. and even then, I'm not sure, right? I don't think you can start going 5-6 on him. I think that's too much. And Hronek, again, I think there's a lot of recency bias here. He didn't have a great playoffs. There's rumors that he was dealing with an injury. I think that you also have to keep in mind, like, this guy played heavy minutes. I know it was beside Quinn Hughes, and I wish that we'd had a larger sample of how he played without Hughes. But we know he was great with Hughes, and they were the best defense pair for in the National Hockey League for a large stretch of the season. I think you need to be very careful about discarding a player like that. So Hronek, I think we hear all these numbers, and I think where are these numbers coming from? Are they coming from the agent? Because of course the number is going to be high if they're coming from the agent. I mean, $8 million seems crazy. I don't think you can pay him more than Hughes, but he's going to get his money. Like, he's got the numbers to back it up.
Yeah, boy, if it's in the $4 million range, I'm in on Zadorov, Rob. I'm with you. Like,
the term matters too, right? Like,
the agent is trying to push the numbers here, and he has some aiders and abettors in Vancouver sports media. By the same token, I would not be surprised, because all it takes is one, and you're talking about a guy with things that you can't teach in terms of size and mobility and attitude. So, put it this way. I don't see him re-signing with you prior to free agency for anything under 5.5. Like, I think they'll test the waters here, unless you're willing to pony up before July 1st. And I don't know. Could you see them doing that? You think they fell in love with him?
I think they have, but is the term 2 years? Okay, maybe that's not so terrible, but even then, where are you penciling him in? Like, he's a 4-5 defenseman, right? Like, and even when I say 4-5, like, he hasn't proven over an extended period of time in his career that he can be a top 4 defenseman. Like, his minutes don't reflect that, right? So yeah, I would be nervous even at that. And so for me, the term is such a big part of this. Like, you can't go 5.5 on a 4-year deal or something like that. Like, that is really risky, in my opinion. And I know, and the other guy I want to talk about is Ian Cole. Like, I know everyone's ready to ship him out of town. Again, I wish more people. I know Pettersson is getting a bit of criticism for mentioning his injury in the press conference. I wish we just find out all the injuries. Like, at this point, why are we hiding? Like, it's so hard to evaluate these players when we don't know what they were dealing with. Like, what was Cole dealing with in the playoffs? That might explain a lot. And if you look at the totality of his season, like, he was a top 4 defenseman for this team all year. He was their leading minute guy on the PK. Like,
he'll be 36. He'll be 36.
No, but you're not giving him term. But if he would come back on a 1-year deal and keep the dollar figure reasonable, Ian Cole was an excellent defenseman for this team. Like, keep him in a depth role. He's not on a top pair or anything like that. Also seems to be a great leader in the locker room. I think that's an important guy to have. Like, you're not just gonna, I think next year is going to be, the Canucks are going to have to be very careful about coming into training camp with, I think they maybe had a chip on their shoulder coming into training camp before this season. Next season, like, they need to keep that chip on their shoulder. Like, they can't just waltz in and expect that they're going to just cruise to the playoffs. Or, they might get a rude awakening. So I think you still need those leadership guys, and a guy that was very good for you during the course of the regular season.
Yes, a couple things there. First of all, Rick Tocketts, who are we? Rob is still big on who are we, and you're right, Rob. Nothing has been achieved. The GM said so in his opening remarks. I'm with you on a team-friendly deal, 1-year team-friendly deal on Cole, especially if you lose Zadorov. Because here's the other thing that I think is coming into focus, gentlemen. I don't think they're going to get all of their holes filled this summer.
No, of course not.
I think there are going to be at least one, if not a couple, if not a 3-pack of files that are going to have to be fixed in season, much like they fixed defense with Nikita Zadorov and center with Elias Lindholm in season. And frankly, should have fixed winger as well. That one went unfixed, and that one ultimately cost them.
The one thing with Cole, guys, he didn't play up until 3 years ago. So he's into his 30s before he's played 2 seasons, pardon me. He's got 1 season of 81 games prior to 3 years ago. The last 3 years, what I'm saying, have been the busiest 3 years of Ian Cole's career. I just wonder if he's just needs to be spot duty, if he needs to be the 7th defenseman. If you can get 7,
that's fair.
If you can get him on 7th defenseman money, by all means.
So you say that, and my question would be, so do you have Juleson as your 6th, as your right side third pair guy?
It's a possibility.
Okay.
It's a possibility.
All right. Because for me,
they could platoon maybe.
For me, if Cole's your 7th guy, that probably means Juleson's your number 6. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like for 82 games, like Cole was a better defenseman than Juleson, like straight up. And also, I'd add to that, if you look at Cole's struggles, they also started when he was shifted to the right side. So I do wonder if that played into a little bit. He was the guy that went to play his offside, and maybe you stick him on the left where he's a bit more comfortable. And in saying all this, I think the biggest key to all this free agency talk is they need to find value, right? And this is like if you just look at like July 1st from Alvin this last year compared to like a typical Benning July 1st, right? Benning would jump out of he would identify who he wanted and would jump out of his shoes to give them whatever they want, 3 years, 4 years, whatever money you want, Jay Beagle, Antoine Roussel, it's yours, right? The Canucks came into July 1st, identified needs, and got team-friendly deals and didn't overcommit to players into their 30s. And they signed guys like Cole, Soucy, Bluger on July 1st and had money left over to get a guy like Pius Suter in August. I think you need to keep that general theory with a lot of your free agents where you can't fall in love too much with Zadorov as much as you love what he brings. Same thing with Dakota Joshua. And I think that you can give Joshua term or you can give him money, but you can't give him term and money, right? Like this is a guy in his late 20s now that's had one breakout season. You can't fall too in love with that player. And, like Alvin said in his press conference, like we can find the next Dakota Joshua. And I think that's a big key. I do think there's an element of like, you maybe pay an extra premium for a player that you already know fits into what you're doing. I think there's value to that, but you just can't just jump out of your shoes for all of these guys. And that's why I think a guy like Cole, I think you can get him on a reasonable term and reasonable money. I think Tyler Myers is probably a guy that you can get on a team-friendly deal because I think he wants to stay here. But I just feel like guys like Lindholm, I think he's going to get big money, big term in free agency. This is the guy that's about to enter his 30s. And I think Zadorov's probably in that camp as well. So I just view those guys as that they're going to be gone because they're not going to be, you're not going to get them on an efficient deal.
How about Dylan?
I think you're giving Ian Cole a little too much credit, but I hear what you're saying.
How about Dylan and Cole share the spot for the same price as one Zadorov?
Who? Sorry?
Brendan Dillon and Ian Cole. You could probably get them for the same price as one Nikita Zadorov.
Yep. And I think
you got injury.
I think you've got to be open to those sort of concoctions. And look, one of them has to play the right side. Then, if you got an injury there, right? Like if
you had
you're talking about
right
a pure
side.
7, or sharing the third pair left side guy, one of them is your 7th, and one of them probably has to flip over and play the right side if you have injury. But
you're still going out to find another right shot.
Well, you're bringing back Hronek. You got Myers and you got Juleson. No?
Oof.
That's not good enough for you?
Nope. I want another right shot defenseman.
Well,
I think
there's limited funds available, Blake Price.
I mean, I still think Juleson's best slotted as the 7th, personally. Like
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
But what we're wondering is whether or not they're going to be able to do all their business And, right now it's a tall order to ask them to be great down the right side. 1, 2, 3 with Juleson as the fourth. Answer me today's poll question. Who you want beside Hughes? Hronek, Tanev, or someone else, since we're talking right side defense?
Depends how much money they're each making. All things being equal, Hronek, like, he had a fantastic season next to Hughes. And I'm the biggest Chris Tanev fan out there. But yeah, like, what's Tanev going to earn in free agency? How many more years is he going to get? Like, how many more years can his body hold up? I thought the deal that he signed with Calgary was very risky at the time. I thought that there was no way he was going to age gracefully, and he's aged wonderfully. Like, it's amazing how he's held up. He's been probably underpaid and underrated his entire career. So if you can continue to get him on a team-friendly deal, then fantastic. And I think that that's a guy that he fits within what you're doing, and I think the elements that he brings to the table are great. But yeah, I think, again, it depends on money, depends on term. If it's a 1 year, 1 game situation, maybe the answer is Tanev. But again, like, Hughes and Hronek works. Like, I don't think we should be throwing away Hronek too hastily here.
Yeah. You've been talking to Drance. You've been talking.
He wasn't I did talk to him about this, and maybe I'm getting like
listening to this show
inception here. Yeah,
he's been listening to this show. Okay, we'll talk Pettersson next week. I saw he slithered out of the Pettersson answer, so we're gonna hold your feet to the fire on Pettersson next week. Okay, Rob?
Sounds great.
Sounds great. Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.